Madam Vice President, Cabinet members, our partners, elders, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I now call on the religious advisor to lead us in prayer as we start this important meeting, cabinet meeting.
In Jesus' name, I would like for us to bow our heads for the word of prayers. Father, we thank you, we bless you for this first cabinet meeting retreat. Father, I ask you for the oil of grace, the oil of wisdom, the oil of understanding, Lord, to take us, our nation, to the next level in the name of Jesus. Let this cabinet retreat mark the difference in our nation in the name of Jesus. I pray, oh God, for your grace to abide with us as we go through, to your honor, to your glory. In Jesus' wonderful name I pray.
Mr. President, Madam Vice President, at this time we will call on Minister Vani Salif to come and perform his statutory duty as a local government head. Minister Salif.
Madam Vice President, members of the Cabinet, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as the President arrived in the great county of Bassa, it is our duty to present to him the power of authority that he assigned to us as his agent in this great county. So I will call on the superintendent who will perform that duty. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, Vice President of the Republic of Liberia, Dean of the Cabinets and Cabinet Ministers, Assistant Minister, Deputy Minister, Superintendents. I have the honor to present to the Minister of Internal Affairs the gavel of authority for onwards march to the office of the President as he takes on the mantle of authority in the post city of Buchanan, Grand Bassa County. Mr. Minister, I have the honor to present to you this gavel of authority for onward submission to the office of the President. Thank you so much.
Mr. President, the only little advice the superintendent gave me is when we present you this power of authority, when you're leaving, you should please leave it with us so that will empower us to continue. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Minister, thank you for this shared power. I know when I'm leaving, I will leave it with you so you can use it too. I didn't know that it's shared power. Well, thank you, and a welcome statement from our partners.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Liberia, George Maniwea, Your Excellency, the Vice President of the Republic, Madam Njewo Howell-Taylor, Honorable Ministers, members of the Diplomatic Corps here present, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols duly observed. Mr. President, on behalf of the United Nations family, including the World Bank and the African Development Bank, I would like to extend my deep appreciation for inviting us to participate in this historic Cabinet 100-day stock-taking retreat today. I extend apologies on behalf of the United Nations Resident Coordinator, Yakub El Hilo, who would have liked to be here, but is out of the country on a short break. Your Excellencies, retreats are always a welcome moment, a moment to reflect, take stock, to reboot and reset, and to re-energize afresh in coping with the challenges ahead. The 2 days are immensely important for the government. It provides an opportunity to reflect on not only the achievements made in the last 100 days, but more importantly, to inform and shape the national development agenda going forward. Excellencies, the UN family would like to applaud an impressive record already in translating campaign promises into tangible benefits for the people. A deep commitment shown by your government for a pro-poor approach to development that aims to deliver on good governance, fighting corruption, promoting transparency, and encouraging an investment climate that welcomes new foreign and domestic entrants to benefit the poor and ensure that no one is left behind. Excellencies, yet we know that there remain challenges. The economy, while the improvement is slow and the fiscal space is narrow to meet the high expectations of the people, especially the young people who are eager to see a difference in their lives and impatient to experience a pro-poor dividend. In addition, we know that consolidating and sustaining the peace is work in progress. Your Excellencies, the UN family fully subscribes to the 4 priority areas that underpin the pro-poor agenda, namely empowering the people, economy and jobs, sustaining the peace, and governance and transparency. We believe that these 4 pillars are adequate in advancing your vision, building on the gains already made under the agenda for transformation. We understand that these priorities are now being crystallized into the pro-poor agenda for prosperity and development, PAPD, as the new blueprint that will guide the national development agenda. The UN family is already engaged, providing technical and advisory support in preparing this new blueprint, which will in turn inform our program priorities as a UN system. In addition, Your Excellencies, formulation of the pro-poor agenda for prosperity and development provides an excellent opportunity to realize your vision and fully incorporate the Sustainable Development Goals with an emphasis on education, health, gender equality, and an inclusive economy that will create jobs, especially for women and youth. It also offers a great opportunity to renew partnerships with the development community. To achieve all this, Your Excellencies, prioritization and sequencing will be critical to be able to deliver the desired results. As Your Excellency has emphasized, the focus should be on doing a few things, but doing them well. These pragmatic words should guide the PAPD deliberations. In conclusion, Your Excellencies, we would like to underline the comments you made at the Liberia Moment New Vision for Development that was held on 23rd March this year. You pledged to deepen collaboration, international partnership, relationship, and solidify every effort in achieving the government's proposed agenda. We look forward to strong coordination and management mechanisms that will ensure effective and efficient delivery and accountability of results. As the family of the United Nations agencies, funds and programs, including the bank, the World Bank, and the African Development Bank, we would like to affirm our commitment to stay the course and continue the journey alongside the Liberian people and your government as the country moves to consolidate its democracy, pursue prosperity for all through the realization of the Sustainable Development Goals. I thank you.
His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Liberia, Her Excellency Madame Joel Taylor, Honorable Ministers of State, Your Excellencies, members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. The World Bank deems it an honor to be invited to participate in this cabinet retreat. The country manager, Madame Larissa Leshenko, would have liked to be here, but it's on another assignment outside the country. Let me take this opportunity to convey her appreciation to the government for extending this invitation to the World Bank. We indeed congratulate the government for laying out its vision and development agenda, which is the pro-poor agenda for prosperity and development, within a record time. We also note that government is taking pragmatic steps to ensure that it achieves concrete results in the shortest possible time. It's gratifying to note that the government wants to see that her programs have significant impact on the poor. Secondly, the government wants to target a few things and do them well. Government also recognizes the need to rationalize public expenditures and grow the revenue base. We are very much aware of the challenges in implementing these laudable ideas, and the World Bank stands ready to support the government during the implementation phase. In view of this, permit me to make a few remarks in three policy areas that are captured in the development agenda of government. One is the economy and jobs. Second is empowering the people. And the third is strengthening the capacity of the public sector to deliver on government's mandate. Under the economy, I'm sure you would agree with us that the private sector is the main engine of growth. And sometimes we have given them lip service. But going forward, I'm sure Your Excellency, your government would really consider improving the business environment for the private sector, both domestic, private sector operators and foreign sector operators. What the private sector needs is a more predictable environment and not just having tax exemptions. And what they also respond to is an incentive structure that would provide signals for them to move into the sectors that you want them to move into. So we hope that as you implement the development agenda, you would look at some of the critical constraints that is affecting the private sector and address them. Some of the bottlenecks are not finance, but they're just a question of policy changes, and I'm sure you would want to really address them head on. The second point under that would be to ensure that we have a very clear sense of the sectors that are going to contribute to the growth agenda and provide adequate support. I would want to move to the empowering of the people. This is aptly captured in the development agenda, and it couldn't have come at any better time. This is because the only way to teach the people of Liberia how to fish is to expose them to education. So we are hoping that government's policy of providing access to basic education by all could be implemented. I know it takes a lot of hard work to do that, but already we see a lot of synergies that can be built into the economy when government is providing school feeding and is using the output from the agricultural sector. So we really would be happy to support government in this area as the World Bank. The other area is the quality of education and how education would eventually lend itself to school graduates that are employable. And we appreciate the discussions that we are having so far on the possibility of incorporating core TVET curriculum into government's education program as a whole. The third area, which is very important, is the capacity of the public sector to deliver on government's mandate. We know that over time, the public sector has grown very largely, but it still has a lot of challenges in delivering on its mandate. So this is an area where, Mr. President, we hope that you would be able to keep an eye on. In conclusion, we would want to say that the World Bank stands ready to support the government in its implementation, and we are also happy to see beyond financing any area that you would need technical assistance. Thank you very much.
Your Excellency, President George Manoia, Vice President Jewel Howard-Taylor, Honourable Ministers, Deputy Ministers, Heads of Commissions, agencies, and all government officials here today, representatives of local government, international partners, all protocols observed. I want to add my thanks to those who've spoken previously and to reinforce what they've said. It's not always the case, but today I don't think I've heard anything from either of our previous speakers that isn't also what the European Union and its member states would want to say today. I think we are all very pleased with what we've heard of the new government's plans, the energy that's gone into the early focus, and the work that's being done now to develop the longer-term plan. Rather than repeat what others have said, just to reinforce a couple of particularly important points. First, the focus on the private sector. As international partners, we are here, ready and committed to support Liberia for the long term, but we all know the reality is only private sector growth can deliver the jobs and the government revenues that are needed in the long term to deliver for sustainable development. So it really is important to get support for those conditions right. Secondly, the focus on doing a few things and doing them well. Given the constraints, given the challenges, it's important to be realistic and really prioritize. I want to support also comments that were made about dialogue with partners. We've had a really good start there, but I think a structure, a process that allows genuine dialogue in a predictable way for all involved will really help our future cooperation. There is one point neither of the previous speakers mentioned, and you might not be surprised to hear coming from the European Union, and that is, I'm looking at a really talented, qualified group of people here, but I just wish there was a little bit better gender balance. And without wishing anything negative for anyone here today, I hope that by the end of the 6 years, opportunities will have been found to allow some more of Liberia's really talented women to be part of this group making these important decisions. So with that said, just a few words on the theme of looking back, forging ahead. Forging ahead, we often think of the meaning of moving ahead rapidly. But forging ahead also means making steady progress, not letting yourself be distracted by obstacles or distractions. And as someone who comes from a part of the United Kingdom where ironworks and iron making is the traditional industry, I know that even if the final act of forging metal into an object requires quick, decisive action, it also requires careful planning and preparation. And while a smith can put his failed attempt back in the forge and try again, that's not so easy for a government. So the challenge is managing the balance between moving quickly to respond to needs and anticipations, and taking the time to be sure policies are realistic and will deliver the intended benefits without unanticipated consequences. And so events like today's retreat really help to maintain that balance, providing an opportunity to look back at progress and draw lessons for the future. In a similar way, the ongoing consultations that the Ministry of Finance are leading on the new Pro-Poor Agenda for Prosperity and Development are a positive indication of the government's readiness and recognition of the benefits of listening to different perspectives, both domestically and internationally. So I think this is a really useful and productive initiative. I hope that in your discussions you will find it of benefit as you look back and move forward, because the first 100 days are a very important time to set the stage, but you've got 5.5 years of hard work ahead of you. We're here alongside you, but the work is down to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, President Ware, Vice President Taylor, distinguished members of the Cabinet, officials of the Government of Liberia, fellow donor partners, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'd like to say that I am indeed honored representing the United States Embassy in Monrovia to represent the interests of the various sections in that embassy. It is indeed an honor, and so let me make a few points. First of all, let me say that Ambassador Elder would have loved to be here, but unfortunately she was not able to make it, her schedule not permitting. So even though I am the USAID Mission Director in this role, I want to just let you know what is going on with the other sections. As many of you know, the United States is probably the largest bilateral donor and has enjoyed a close and productive, very historical relationship with Liberia. And we expect and anticipate that it will continue in the new administration. Let me point out that the INL section of the embassy works very closely with the Police and Ministry of Justice. The Defense Office works very closely with the Liberian Armed Forces. The Centers for Disease Control, the American CDC, works very closely with the Ministry of Health in controlling epidemiological diseases. We have the Millennium Challenge Corporation that is currently implementing a compact. The primary goal was to help in the rehabilitation of Mount Coffee, which is completed. We also have another institution called Fiscal that also has a very long and distinguished relationship here in Liberia. And then finally, USAID, which I represent, we work in at least 4 different sectors. So first of all, let me say that we are very pleased with the focus on pro-poor growth in Liberia. We think that is the way to go. And as perhaps many of your ministers and officials already know, we are very anxious to begin to speak about the details. How does one go about making that program of pro-poor growth a reality? So I know we're only supposed to make a very few remarks, so I just want to leave one point, and I want to take advantage of the fact that I'm speaking before the entire cabinet. I think the one lesson that we have learned from working in development for a long time is that to achieve the goals that you have set out, you need additional resources. And for the sake of Liberia, there's only two ways you could basically get it. You have to grow the economy, and you have to become more efficient in the way you implement your projects. I think Dr. Remy said earlier that sequencing is particularly important. I can't help but stress that the way you go about doing things will in fact lead to larger impacts. As anybody who's worked in development knows, there are perhaps better ways and worse ways to implement projects. And as many of the ministers that I deal with and the other officials, we stand ready to help figure out what is the best way to achieve those things. Secondly, in another position, I'm also co-chair. I co-chair the donors group with Yakub El Hilo. And I also want to say that we have been working since last year to try to come up with a common framework. And I can say with some confidence that all the donors stand ready to engage with you and to help you achieve the goals that you have set forth. We think Liberia deserves no better. Thank you.
And we are always prepared to partner with you. We will always need your support. Thank you. Thanks for coming. Well, we will go through our overview of the retreat.
In the interest of time, I will give you an abbreviated overview of the retreat. Today, we come to take stock of our 100 days. 100 days as an administration, 100 days of hard work, 100 days of challenges, 100 days of transition. Today, we'll reflect. In our reflections, we'll look at our purple agenda. We'll look at the President's priorities and other priorities. We will also consider our communication strategy, coordination, among others. As you join Mr. President to drive this engine to success, to lift our people out of poverty, let's bear in mind, there's one captain, and that's captain for the ship, is President Weah. When he scores, we score. We are here to support his agenda. During the course of the retreat, the first day will focus on big ticket items. Tomorrow, we will look at processes in agencies and ministries, and we encourage you to be very alert. For those of you who are new in government, this will help you. Going through the discussion for today as presentation, let me give you few things to consider. During the discussion time, if you are to make any intervention, please be brief and to the point. Second, you must be recognized by the chair, Mr. President, before you take the floor. And because it's this gathering, when you take the floor, you must address the chair appropriately. Second, during the course of the discussion, please mute your telephone. Please mute your telephone. And you have to step out to take a phone call, you are allowed to do so, but do not take phone calls during discussion time. This retreat is very important to His Excellency, and of course, very important to you. Lastly, the ladies' room, for some of you who are new and just joining us, the ladies' room and gents' room are on the other side. And if you have to go, just politely step out and you can come back and join us. Mr. President, Madam Vice President, we want to thank you. Again, let me join Mr. President to welcome all of you to the first retreat. And we are looking forward to a very healthy and productive discussion. At the end of this retreat, day 2, we hope, we pray that we'll formulate a roadmap for the next 6 months. A time-bound roadmap that will hold us accountable as a government to the agenda of President Weah to produce results for our people. Let's bear in mind, let's know that the decisions we make in this room today affect those who are on the street, who are not privileged to be in this room. As we make these decisions, let's continue to work hard. And thank you so much. And I will now turn over the podium over to Mr. President, and as we go through the discussions and so forth. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Jordan. What my priorities, as you all know, an appropriate agenda is to develop this country to make sure that our people are happy with their basic necessity. So far, what I've done, along with my government, Honorable Maggie, Minister of State, will present our priorities and other projects.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Mr. President. Firstly, let me extend special thanks to members of the Cabinet and heads of autonomous agencies. As you know, we at the Ministry of State, our responsibility is to work closely with the different sectors so as to ensure the agenda of the President is delivered. While doing so, we also want to encourage members of the different sectors, especially areas in which the President have placed some high priorities, particularly the area of infrastructure. We'll go down to the issue of the roads. The President has said with the number of different priorities he has set, he does not intend to achieve everything at the same time, but he intends to put some premium on certain key areas so as to make progress. When we took over, the President initially identified few low-hanging fruits during a 150 days program. I will have the team from the PDU section to do a small presentation so as to identify the areas that the President did identify and how much progress has been made in those areas. For instance, we made some contribution to the ministry, to JFK. Our understanding is some progress has been made. The presentation will give you a small highlight on the amount of progress that has been made. And we will call some of the sector up to be able to give us some of the challenges why we have not made some progress and how long we intend to deliver on the projects. So I will now call on the PDU section.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, my name is Michael Cockwell. I coordinate the affairs of the President's Delivery Unit, and we focus on tracking and monitoring implementation as well as providing practical support to implementing ministries with regards to achieving the President's priority projects. This presentation, as Mr. McGill has said, affords you the opportunity to get a very high-level perspective of some of the progress that has been made under this administration in the past 100 days as we reflect and take stock of the first 100 days of the administration. To put this in context, at the beginning of March, a similar style cabinet meeting was held in Painesville, at which time the Office of the President and the Honorable Minister of Finance were able to identify some quick win projects that could be immediately implemented or at least commenced, and again in line with the administration's pro agenda that would be able to give some practical relief where needed. So I will quickly go through the 13 priority projects that the unit has been focused on, and then other priority projects that have been mentioned by the President, and then that will be a segue into the Minister of Finance presentation with regards to the PAPD. We all know that during the campaign time and even after campaign time, the President made a promise to the Liberian people that he will pay the WAS and WAEC fees for all 12 graders who were sitting the WAEC examinations. To date, we have been working with the Ministry of Education and as well as WAEC. We are pleased to report that 37,091 students from 600 high schools in the Republic of Liberia sat the WAEC, and that on the implementation side of it, the Ministry of Finance has been able to make payments once the list of those schools have been verified by WAEC, by the Ministry of Education. And the intent, again, of this from a pro perspective is to afford opportunities to those underprivileged families and poor families who have to foot additional bills in addition to the cost of tuition and other expenses to give them some reprieve with regards to students who are taking the WAEC fees. Again, I was informed that this will be an interactive discussion, so I will stop here, and if there's any additional intervention or remarks that the Minister of Education or the Ministry of Education will want to make in this regard, we'll entertain same. Let me proceed to the next one. The next project that we focused on was a credit line for private sector development. Again, in the thinking of the President, he wants to really empower the ordinary Liberian man and woman out there through formulating or having available a credit facility that people can access and start some small businesses, and it will be a revolving fund that will be paid back and other people will benefit from it. Working alongside the Ministry of Commerce, we have been putting together a project document. No monies for this project has been dispersed yet because we really want to get it right this time. Again, we also have to seek the intervention of the CBL because the proposal aims at making sure that the credit line is placed in an extra account, but is given to local microfinance institutions who would then set the criteria for selection of businesses. The Ministry of Commerce will give practical support to ensure that the bare minimum essentials of running a business, issues like accounting and bookkeeping are duly noted, so that people have the ability to pay the money back into the fund and other Liberians can benefit from it. But to date, again, there's a slide on the finances and the implementation. No monies have been dispersed under this project because it's still a working document yet. The third issue I want to highlight, again, is the issue of street lights. We know electrification of Monrovia and its environs has been a challenge over the years. And we also know that the issue of street lights and electrification has practical safety and security concerns. So in that regard, the Liberia Electricity Corporation and the Ministry of Public Works have been working for the past 2 months, and I'm pleased to say that over the past 2 months we have been able to string up a total of 736 street lights in key corridors. And the affected corridors, which maybe you may have been able to notice, we're doing the Gabriel Tucker Bridge to Freeport. We're also doing from Freeport to St. Paul Bridge. We're doing LY Junction to Rehab all the way to Suwatown Road. If you go to Claratown now, they have street lights in there. If you go to Logantown Main Road, street lights are there. Nukru Town. We're also doing something in the Suffolk community as well. And the Praising Compound BTC. The last time when Mr. President visited Gibraltar, he also instructed the LUC people, in addition to during the renovation of the houses and the roofs over there, to put some street lights in that area. So we're also doing that. So in the span of from March up to now, we have been able to string up 736 street lights. LEC has in its possession a total of 2,000 street lights. So all of these will be placed at strategic locations as at the will and pleasure of the President. So this program is well ongoing, and I just wanted to highlight that. One of the other projects as well is the UL digitization and Wi-Fi project. And the thing of the President is, we wanted to do something different at the University of Liberia with regards to automating our registration system. We know that over the years, there has been huge challenges with registering students on time, making sure that accurate documents can be retrieved by even people who are alumni of the University of Liberia and stuff of that nature. And for this project, we have, and the President is well aware, the Minister of State is also aware, we have required, or we have asked and requested for direct presidential intervention because we have some procurement-related concerns with the UL digitization and Wi-Fi project, so that we proceed in accordance with all applicable laws. That request has been forwarded to the Minister of State and the President, and they will act on it accordingly to ensure that the project is realized. The next project that the PDU is tracking is GFK. We know also that one of the first assessments that His Excellency made was a walkthrough of the facilities of the John F. Kennedy Hospital. And we all know the story of GFK is a national nightmare. The Minister of Finance was able to allocate a total of $500,000 to do some works at JFK. While those monies may not be enough to do a complete overhaul of the total problems at JFK, currently if you go to JFK, in addition to the work that Prevail is doing to construct an MRI, a center that will house both MRI, CT scan, we also have renovation works undergoing at JFK that's focused exclusively on the emergency room centers, the emergency center, and the outpatient care. This has been done by a local Liberian contractor, 21st Century. Dr. Jerry Brown was able to convince them to pre-finance the works. We're more than 50% complete, more than 60% complete on that front. So if you go to JFK and you enter the emergency room, you will see a new state of affairs with regards to the infrastructure. The equipment is much more of a long-term challenge that JFK administration along, I'm not sure what the Minister of Health will have to address. Additionally, with the $300,000 that has been allocated out of the 5, the Ministry of Health, the JFK administration, I should say, has also decided to do some work on upgrading the facilities at the E.S. Grant Mental Hospital. And I tell you, when we visited that place, the condition of the patients and of the infrastructure does nothing to enhance their medical condition. So he wants to change the roof. There are some interventions that have been made to upgrade the sanitation system that's there, do some painting, put some lights in the place, upgrade the general living conditions of the patients at the E.S. Grant Medical Hospital. And lastly, I should say on the JFK issue as well, Dr. Brown was able to locate, I should say, we have 2 oxygen machines that have been sitting down at JFK unused. So he also wants to be able to construct an oxygen plant that will be able to provide oxygen not only to JFK, but also to hospitals, so that we stop this age-old problem of not having oxygen when patients need it. So he has already identified a site. The 2 machines are there. The construction works can be done, and he has assured us that in 150 days, this can be achieved. The next project that was captured under the Quick Wins project is the National ID for Payroll Cleanup. And this is a project that we are particularly excited about because from a pro-quo standpoint, this project has the ability to help us clean up not only the payroll, but it also has associated cost savings with regards to our fiscal space. We've been working with Mr. Nangwe at the NIR. This project was successfully launched. My understanding is that all of the civil servants at the Ministry of Finance have been registered. They have been issued biometric ID cards, because the thinking behind this is to make sure that all civil servants and pensioners have biometric ID cards. That way, someone who's getting a check from government payroll can be identified. You can see the actual person behind it, and it will help to clean up some of the ghost names that we have on the payroll, as well as do some savings. So as I stated, MFDP has been completed. We have been told that Ministry of Internal Affairs has been completed as well. PPCC, I understand, has been completed. I think the next agency that will be moved to will be the Ministry of Mines and Energy. I understand that our work has started as well. And the NIR folks have also written to the Executive Mansion and the Ministry of State to see if they could kick up a similar project at the Ministry of State. So by and large, this project is on course. We just need to work with the Ministry of Finance to ensure that additional funding or the balanced funding for the project is released. The next project that was captured is the PSL teachers. This is the Partnership Schools for Liberia. It has been noticed that there are some teachers, 400 in number, who are captured as PSL teachers but are not really on the Ministry of Education or government payroll. And the intent of this was to place those teachers on government payroll and also upgrade the salary status of an additional 180 teachers who, for whatever reasons, for example, is a college graduate, but he's teaching at a lower level certification. The Minister of Finance, or the Deputy Minister, I should say, for Instruction, has informed us that the Ministry of Education is undertaking a comprehensive review of the entire PSL, the entire educational system as a whole. I think if my information serves me right, there's supposed to be an education summit next week, Monday. When that process is completed, the Ministry of Education will issue a national policy statement with regards to what will be done with the PSL teachers. So with regards to that, no monies have been disbursed for this project yet until we get the official cleanup and policy statement from the Ministry of Education. Humanitarian Outreach Program, this is covered under the Office of the First Lady. The Office of the First Lady, as has been reported, has been focusing on a number of humanitarian interventions, focusing on orphanages, focusing on the disabled, and also focusing on constructing homes for the elderly. Currently, we're told that she is doing a complete renovation of 11 orphanages in and around Monrovia and its environments. And the renovation works include just practical rehabilitation of the place, making sure it's up to livable standards. Some of these places, when they were visited, it was discovered that some of the kids were only having just one meal a day. She's trying to make sure that they have adequate nutrition, sufficient nutrition, that the beds are upgraded, and that the living conditions as well are improved. She also has a monthly feeding program for the elderly at SKD Sports Complex, and the next one will be in 2 weeks. We also were informed that the First Lady undertook an needs assessment in Buchanan as well, and that she has plans to construct a retirement home for the elderly in the sports city of Buchanan. So these are some of the interventions that the Office of the First Lady has been undertaking, and some monies have been dispersed from the Ministry of Finance as well to support that. Repair of NTA buses. When we sat with the Deputy Managing Director of NTA, he informed us that when they took over, the state of the buses were in a very bad condition. Again, this has tangible bearings on the PROPO agenda, because NTA and public transportation helps to ease some of the transportation woes that the ordinary citizens go through on a day-to-day basis. So with regards to that, the concept behind this is to make sure that 32 of the buses are rehabilitated and brought back up to a level where they can ply the streets of Monrovia and be able to pick up and drop off passengers, especially in consideration of the rainy season. Up to date, we know that some procurement has been done. Some of the buses in total, I think 10 of them have been fully rehabilitated and put back on the streets. Those parts that could be sourced locally were sourced locally. Issues like batteries, tires, oil, spare parts, all of those we were able to get, and the NTA management was able to repair the buses. More long term, because disbursement-wise, only 50% of the allocated budget has been disbursed. NTA was supposed to do a performance report on the first tranche of money to the Ministry of Finance. We'll work with them to make sure that that is done so that the next disbursement is done and that the remainder of the buses can be placed on the road. The 14 military hospital, we all know that this is a key priority of the President. We know that during the Armed Forces Day program, the President made a proclamation that a military hospital will be constructed on the facilities of EBK. Up to date, we know that groundbreaking occurred on in March, the 27th of March. On the 3rd of May, the President laid the first bricks. With regards to this, we, the technical team, Ministry of Defense, the AFL, Ministry of Public Works, Ministry of the EPA, PDU, Ministry of State have been working together to make sure that we complete all of the feasibility studies, all of the geotechnical studies. We have gotten approvals of the preliminary detailed designs from the Ministry of Public Works. We have also gotten approvals of the EPA environmental assessment reports from the EPA as well. The Deputy Minister made it clear to me that I should report that as to date, all PVCC related obligations on this project have been met as to date. So we want to clarify that. So the military hospital will continue. Again, since we're up here and we have the opportunity to make some clarifications, there's a perception that at the completion of this hospital, it will be a 200-bedroom hospital. That is not what Dr. George said. At the completion of this hospital, it will have the capacity to hold 200 beds. The way it is structured, there are 4 wards with 15 rooms each, and each room has the capacity to hold 6 to 8 beds. Now, the onus is on, of course, the Minister of Defense and the Chief of Staff of the AFL, because we know that certain personnel and, of course, the Commander-in-Chief will be given preference as to what rooms could be occupied. So at its completion, and even if you do the math, 4 wards, 15 rooms, 6 to 8, it clearly exceeds the capacity for 200 beds. So again, from a media perspective, I should say, it will be a facility that has the capacity to hold 200 beds and not necessarily a 200-bedroom facility. We just wanted to make that clear. The next project that was captured under the 13 Quick Win projects was RAP for the Sanikole-Logwatuo Road. To put it in context, in 2016, government entered into a commitment to do a counterpart funding for 2 roads. The first one is from Sanikole to Logwatuo, and the second one is the Fishtown to Kilipo Road. Now, under that counterpart funding, our obligation as a government is to pay the RAP component of it, the resettlement action, to make sure that the right-of-way is secured, people are compensated for damaged structures and planes, all of the sorts. So the Minister of Finance has allocated a total of $1 million. The total for both stretches of roads come up to $1.9 million, but under this recast budget and some of the savings that were able to be gotten, the Minister of Finance has allocated $1 million. Where we are right now is, my understanding is that a verification process is ongoing by the technical team from the Ministry of Public Works Once they do that, because this road is funded by the EU through the European Investment Bank, as well as the African Development Bank. Once that re-verification process is done, and we verify that these are the amount of recipients who are entitled to RAP payment, they will now be forwarded to the EU and the EIB for their own compliance checks. And then once it comes back to us, we can actually start to do the disbursement of the RAP payment for the recipients. And the last project is road maintenance for the Ganta-Swedru Road. And this is in anticipation of the rainy season to ensure that the road is still pliable during the rains. So a total of $2 million was allocated. We understand that $1.25 million has been disbursed because the Minister of Public Works already has a contractor that's mobilized in that region that will be doing the RAP works. We understand that a total of 90 to 100 kilometers of that stretch of road has already been done. Routine maintenance work has been done on that road, and that in subsequent time the contractor will continue to. Okay, and in addition to that, more long-term, because the Ganta-Swedru Road is expected to start as soon as possible, there are currently, we understand, some legal challenges on the Ganta-Swedru Road that are sitting with the Supreme Court of Liberia for determination with regards to a challenge that was made to the road fund. And I'm not sure if there's been any traction or any movement on that yet, but that will have to be cleared out in order for us to be able to do a full rehabilitation of that road. What we're doing now is just routine maintenance to ensure that the route is pliable for the rainy season. Next, we just wanted to highlight 2 slides on the disbursement performance, and this is mainly from the finance side. This slide captures all of the projects I just talked about, the total costs, what has been allotted, and what has been disbursed so far. Street lights, by and large, the LEC have all of the equipment. They already had all of the 2,000 street lights, but there will be a small funding gap of $96,000. Again, the issues are raised with regards to the UL digitization and registration process that will ultimately be determined by the President. That's the reason why no disbursement has been made to the UL project. The same with the credit line for private sector development. So as far as from a performance standpoint, the only 2 projects that we feel that are really out of track and need some not necessarily presidential intervention on both, but more traction for us to get it back will be the UR project that has procurement-related concerns, and the credit line for private sector development, in which you really need to sit with CBL, Ministry of Commerce, and tease out the details. Again, this is just a representation of the total cost, the allotment, and what has been disbursed so far. So from a disbursement performance, if you were to do a percentage report on what has been allotted and what has been disbursed, the Ministry of Finance to date has disbursed 85% based on these numbers of the total allotted for all of these projects, which we think is a manifestation of the fact that you really want to make sure that the President's priority projects are fully funded and are fully implemented on time. And we think this is a good representation to make. Again, like I said, out of the 13 projects, by and large, most of them are on schedule from an implementation standpoint. We may have some compliance issues from a procurement standpoint. And the 15% over there that represents the behind schedule projects are only the ones covering the UL and the credit line for private sector development. Now on the agenda, it stated the President's priorities and other priorities for the next 6 months. Minister Tue, I understand is coming right after here. He will expand more on the Pro agenda for prosperity and development. But 2 of the key thematic areas that were captured, that will be captured under the PADP, will be infrastructure, and we already know that a heavier burden will fall on roads. Also, energy infrastructure will be captured under there. We have allocation for telecommunications, and our sea and airports will also be captured there. Agriculture as well, value addition in rice and cassava, will be captured under the PADB, which is a working document. My understanding is that once this document is fully released, sometimes in June or July, there will be more thematic areas under the PADB. Additionally, I just wanted to highlight again from a presidential priority perspective, in the recent budget that was submitted to the legislature, these are the priority sectors of this administration: infrastructure, agriculture, education, health, youth development, and social protection services. These are the priority sectors of this administration. And lastly, other presidential projects. Again, when I started, I said that the PDU was just monitoring those 13 projects. We know that some of those projects will come to a close from an implementation standpoint. Again, but then these are just some of the other projects that have been mentioned by the president. Of course, the coastal highway, there was conversations have begun with regards to the creation of a Liberian Airways, the possibility of doing something with the 12th Street to Kessley Boulevard to put a bridge or toll road over there. The issue of Bali Island and transforming it into a state-of-art center. Recent interventions with the Gibraltar community to make sure that some of the roofing on the houses are done, and also too that LEC is visible in that area, and the possibility of the RIA highway electrification. It is very possible that as we go through these next few days of deliberations on the PAPD, we know that very clearly other presidential projects will be captured under here. And once we get our marching orders from the president, we will proceed accordingly. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike. A very important project was left out. As we speak currently, the president is trying to do close to $7 million local housing for our poor people in the interior. Both the housing department and LAYS are currently doing a feasibility in the interior to make sure that you know, when you drive along the highway, you see a lot of huts along the highway. The president is trying to create communities. So I think my understanding is we may probably have about 4,000 local housing, rural housing for our poor people. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Marco. Local housing, very decent one, electrified. So that project is there. And that project is attached because I lived in the village before, and I know how difficult it is to sleep in those huts. So I'm very serious about the huts. If I don't achieve anything, I know the roads to get to the huts, and the huts will be removed. It's my special project. Whether you listen to the pastor that preached on the day that we were praying for the country, he said, no feasibility study and no challenges. Madam Ellen, she's leaving. Mr. Weir, we don't want to hear challenge. We don't want to hear feasibility study. So those that are responsible for the feasibility study, please be flexible. Well, Mr. Samuel, you have the podium.
Development partners, ladies and gentlemen. So I'll do an overview of a series of presentations that will follow. I will technically not make those presentations. Use this opportunity to thank the President, first of all, for the opportunity that all of us members of the Cabinet have to serve in our various capacities. And to thank him for the leadership he's showing in pushing Cabinet members to achieve his focus on results And I think that focus is critical to driving different agencies and ministries to deliver key outputs and outcomes over the next several months. So thank you, Mr. President, for your leadership. Let me use this opportunity also to thank the international development community. The development partners have played an indispensable role in Liberia's recovery from conflict, and more recently its recovery from the scourge of Ebola, and I believe they will have an even more indispensable role to play in our emergence as a lower middle income country in years ahead. They are a critical part of the whole development landscape, and anything we envision, we imagine, they are a big part. And so let me say thank you to all of you for your numerous support to the country over the years in various areas across the development space. And thank you for your presence here today. Thank you. Let's give you a big hand for our development partners. And so the next presentation we'll talk about, our consultants who are doing the presentation will blow out the ProPro agenda, looking at what the plan looks like, talk about delivery mechanism. I just wanted to throw out some key highlights as we move. We are in the process now where we're executing, we submitted the national budget to the national legislature. That budget will soon, it hopes to be passed again for the first time, we are told, before June 30. We're working with, the President is working with the Speaker of the House of Representatives and the President pro tempore to make that happen. Budget hearings are already on course. The context of the submission of that budget are particularly dire, as you will see in the presentation. The country's income position is difficult. We're dependent on key export commodities whose price collapse occasion difficulty for revenue performance. So this is the context of our submission. And so with that backdrop, it'll be very important to focus on domestic resource mobilization as a way to ensure that we really are able to finance, from a government share standpoint, the domestic revenue, the ProPro agenda. When the agenda is ultimately costed, we imagine it will be in the neighborhood of somewhere between $2.9 to $3.2 billion. With a difficult situation, it is difficult to see how the government can meaningfully contribute. The partners will play a role, and we'll turn to the private sector also to pick up a lion's share of all of that. We want to assure all of our partners also that macroeconomic stability is going to be key. The new development plan will focus, we're looking in the medium term to move growth towards the neighborhood of 5 to 6%. It's going to be tough with investments in infrastructure. We know there will be a takeoff, but we're very also careful about ensuring that we have macro stability. And so we're not, some of the investments in roads are going to come from concessional loans, quasi-concessional loans, but this is not to argue that we are ignoring macro stability and debt sustainability. These are going to be key features in our plan. Talking about debt sustainability, we would like to say here that the country will be entering into another round of discussions with the International Monetary Fund. Jeff, I see you here. We've missed 2 early morning meetings now, so I know we have a meeting very soon, and at which time we'll invite the fund to talk about a future program. This is just to assure partners, because there's been some talk that we're walking away from the IMF. We'd like to show we're not, the President is not walking away from the International Monetary Fund. The fund is a key partner to ensure macro stability. We'll engage with you over the next several weeks. In the presentation from some of the partners, the key theme came about prioritization, selectivity. This is critical because we have a very finite amount of resources and a universe of problems. Without prioritization, we cannot achieve. This is why the President has focused on completing the country's road networks, and then we link those networks with our agricultural growth corridors. And so we prioritize in that sense agriculture. He's also prioritizing human development. And the plan, and the consultant will talk a little more about that. A big theme in the plan is also the private sector. All of what we're doing means nothing if the private sector in Liberia, as it is the case in a lot of other countries, does not lead the transformation. And so the constraints to private sector have to be relaxed. In the broader conversation about coordination, we think it's important for even the partners to really elevate their concentration on enabling the private sector to thrive in Liberia. The goals we have on ending poverty, alleviating poverty, creating jobs, are not going to happen when the private sector is lagging behind. And so there will be a central focus on the private sector in the new development plan to improve the investment environment, our doing business, our regulatory environment, to reverse declines we've seen in our doing business index. Youth, I think one of the partners mentioned the importance of gender, social protection, youth development, social protection, and gender empowerment are very critical to this PROPO agenda. This is the essence of the PROPO vision. The number of girls who are getting pregnant before completing school, we have to together sit down and define the framework of bringing that number down. The number of old people who are homeless, who do not receive any access to government services, we need to care for them. This is what the president, even the president's HOT program along the roads, all of these are trying to attack social protection aims. And so the next one I want to talk about, and youth development, you heard youth. The greatest risk to this country is going to be our inability to employ the generation of young people who remain unemployed today. This is the biggest national security risk we face. The entire effort of the government, the whole concentration of all our coordination has to be about scaling and empowering young people to face a competitive future. The plan will talk a lot about that and the mechanism for achieving that. A key theme also that is important for you partners is the new partnership for framework. We do know that a lot of resources have been spent in the country, but I think what we want to do now going forward is to ensure that all of the aid that is coming is spent in a more effective, in a more efficient way that leads to better results than we have seen. And so we will try to put forward with you, and I think we'll talk about a steering committee meeting where the government and the partners can define a new framework for aid management and delivery that will ensure that we are maximizing the impact from $1 of development assistance and also from $1 of domestic resource that we generate. This is the framework that will be articulated jointly between the government and development partners as we go ahead. So it's very key. All of this means nothing if we're not able to deliver. Delivery means that from vision or plan to actions that produce results for whole people, whether those results are jobs, all right? Whether they are in the health, in education, how do we deliver differently than we have delivered in the past 5 or in the past 12 years? This is going to be the most significant aspect of the plan. The adage is that Liberians are very good at planning. I think we've had a lot of plans over the past years. The agenda for transformation, going back to Tolbert, there have been a lot of good plans. I think our challenge as a country and as a government has always been about how do we translate what is written on the pages to the lives of people. I think that's where we need to spend some time thinking about a new delivery mechanism. How does the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Gender, the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Finance, other ministries, how do we work together as a sector to deliver our various respective outcomes? All right? How do we minimize discussions in our delivery? How do we enhance coordination between sector ministries, between partners? How do we mainstream the private sector into that delivery? The plan should talk a lot about the mechanism to achieving all of that. So delivery is actually about effectiveness, and we spend a lot of time looking for more money. I think one thing we need to think about, there are numerous studies, including studies from the WHO, the World Health Organization, that show that, for example, 1/3, about 33% of resources spent in the health sector are wasted. This is troubling. When we translate that to Liberia, the evidence shows. So what we want to do now is ensure that while we're looking for more money, the resources we have today, are we spending them in the most efficient, effective manner to maximize, because we're in a resource-constrained environment. Delivery is also about that kind of effectiveness, so that once we optimize the available resources we have, we know that when we get more resources, we get better results. How do we do that will be part of the planning process and part of the transformation. And in the last presentation, issues about procurement came about. How do we deliver? And I think the procurement director will say something about that. There's a lot of talk about procurement. How do we deliver in a way that, you know, we fulfill the requirements of the law? So some of the procurement issues have to do with the way government and the agencies are relating to their capacity to deliver. So under this administration, we want to respect the law, the procurement laws, and so we are going to work with the PBCC and other actors in the government to ensure that agencies are actually respecting the law in due time so that we don't have any procurement issues during project implementation. So our ability to respect the law is also an indication of our ability to deliver. And so some of the challenges, there are other challenges, you know, but procurement, I'm just highlighting it because there's a lot that's been talked about that. So this is just a high level. I'll invite the team. Mr. Crawford is leading a team of Liberians who are going to construct a pro agenda for prosperity. They have a tight time. I don't think any country has the timeline that they have to deliver a national development plan. Usually it's a one-year exercise, but we're pushing the team to deliver this plan before June 30. We're still committed to the timeline, but we'll encourage some flexibility if we don't meet the June 30 timeline, because it's a tough order. From what we've seen so far, it's tough, but they're committed to doing so. They've just ended some consultations, so I'll invite the consultant to come. Where are they? Oh, Mr. Crawford is here to now take over from here. Thank you.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen of the Cabinet, our development partners, all protocol observed. Before I go forward, let me introduce the entire team working on this at this point in time. And it was good that the finance minister brought up the tight schedule that we're working on, because I was just about to report him and let you know that we are under a lot of pressure to get this done. So what is happening is that at the top, the leadership is being provided by Honorable Samuel Square. We also have Honorable Augustus Flomo. He's the Deputy Minister for Economic Management. We have Honorable Tanya Bronson. And then we have Honorable Benedict Koloba. He's serving as the Assistant Minister. He is your Assistant Minister for Planning. He's serving as the National Coordinator for all this. Now, the report I was bringing to you, Mr. President, is that they called me, these fine people called me like 10 o'clock in the night, and they want us to discuss the pro agenda for prosperity and development. And I look at the time and I say, I should be sleeping. And they say, well, the president said he wanted this thing last month. And then I say, but you just hired me last month. They say, yeah, you should have done it. We hired you last month. The president said he wanted it last month. But they're a fine group of people to work with. They're very committed to the process, and it's our distinguished honor to work on it. At the next level are the substantive leaders. These people you'll find in your sector, ministries, agencies, and commissions. Starting next week, they've already done a first round of consultation. Starting next week, we're going to drill down into the substance of policies, programs, and projects that we need to do under the sector to capture into the pro agenda for prosperity and development. And finally, that is my writing team. My name is Melvin Crawford. I am the team leader, but we also have we have some gender balance. Rial is a fine young woman. She's involved in it, a professional young woman. And then we have Tikon Williams and Mr. Tepu Suo. Now, what we're presenting to you essentially is a preliminary overview of where we are now. What we've done on this is to establish the premise for the pro agenda for prosperity and development. And we're starting on an optimistic note. We're not a pessimistic note, but an optimistic note. We start on the premise that Liberia is a rich country.
It is rich in human resource. It is rich in natural resource. If you look at our demographics, you will notice that 60 to 62% of our population below the age of 30. Significant number in the most productive age of their lives. If you look at our natural resource, considerable amount of land, but that land is not being maximized in terms of what we have. And then we have the natural resources. But the challenge with Liberia is that it is severely underdeveloped. So we start on the premise of trying to understand why is Liberia underdeveloped. Now, our conclusion is that we have not developed our human and knowledge capital to create wealth from our own natural resources. So what are we left with? We're left with a process where we have to take our natural resources, put it into concession arrangement so that others can come and develop the resources for us. Our own people do not have the capacity to use the land, use the natural resources. They do not have the knowledge to be able to do that. So we have a constraint on our development. Now, so why has that happened? We went through our history and we looked at what we call our public administration culture and what has contributed to this. We went back as far as 1847 and we looked at the formation of the nation Liberia. Essentially, it was 5 colonies and at least 16 different nations coming together to form a nation. We traced the process of our history, how it has influenced our public administration culture. We drilled down into the role of local administration, local government, the superintendents, the commissioner, and so forth, and came to the conclusion that part of the challenge we have in developing Liberia is that local administration as it is currently organized is not a driver of local development. Local government as it is currently organized essentially serve as agents for the central government. In the process of the PAPD, we need to see how we can change that. We also look at a number of captures that are happening over our history. Capture of our national development process. Unfortunately, they has happened largely in terms of the professionals who live in and work in Monrovia. They work in the central ministry and agencies, and they make decisions for counties, for remote areas. Some of the remote areas they make decisions for, they have never traveled to. They've never been to those areas. And the people who live in those areas are not engaged and involved in the process. We talk about the capture of our national development agenda by our development partners. Now, what does that mean? They mean well in coming in to help, but the perspective they bring is that Liberia is a failed state. And without fully understanding this precedent that led to this condition, it is difficult to find a solution. I do a lot of work into the national development community, and I know my job is easy if I can take something from one country and copy it to the next. So the solutions have to fit, and we're having a situation where we develop our national development agenda. Because we cannot fund it, we do not have the technical capacity to do it, we have to surrender it, and the development partners have captured it and they run with it. Now, what does that mean? Over the past 10 years, we estimate that $25 billion came flowed into official development assistance for Liberia. Only about 10 or 11% of that money flowed through our own system. 77% went through donor-directed projects. The rest went into trust fund and pool funds and so forth. Next slide. So, in the context of this, what does PROPO mean? The PROPO approach we're defining is placing the needs of the poor and vulnerable at the center of all development intervention. Doing development in ways that lift the poor or vulnerable out of poverty without severely affecting the wealthy. And finally, reducing waste in government with the sole goal of repurposing the savings to improve the lives of the poor and vulnerable. And this is very important because when we started doing the sector working group, essentially what we did was to give guidance to the leaders in terms of how you're going to look at the existing strategic plan, how you're going to look at the programs and projects that you're currently working on, and how you're going to be able to align them with the emerging pro-poor agenda for poverty and development. And this is essentially the guidance we gave them. Next one. Now, how are we developing this? First, we've had these sector working group meetings that I just mentioned to you. We had national consultation across the country. We've done all 15 counties. That process ended last week. And then there have been some diaspora consultation in terms of what they wanted to do. Next one. Now, what we wanted the Liberian people to do is to reaffirm the vision that we have in Vision 2030, that this is what they want as a country, Liberia. And here is the definition that they've provided for us. And that definition now begins to inform how we design the pro-poor agenda for poverty and development. The first one, the Liberian people said we want to be a united people. Okay, what does that mean? Our core aspiration is for political stability and based on equity, not political stability based on the strong overpowering the weak. A society that embraces its triple heritage and guarantees space for all positive cultures to thrive. A society that is democratic, tolerant, respectful of the rule of law and human rights. A society of gender equity, empowerment, and opportunities for all. What we've done when we go drill down into the design of the PAPD, you will see for Pillar 3 and Pillar 4, most of those now will respond to the first perspective of Liberians in terms of what they want for their future. Now, they also want a progressive nation. Now, the Liberian people said clearly in that process that yes, we want GDP growth, we want high growth rate, okay? But that is not enough because that in itself will not be sustainable. So they said they want a progressive nation, but how do they characterize this progressive nation? A self-reliant, innovative, and competitive private sector-led economy with strong indigenous presence. 2, people-focused investment policies, nation that embraces science and technology as avenue to modernization, agriculture for food and self-sufficiency and security, health, wealth, well and relevantly educated, education with improved quality of life. Okay? What we're doing in the PAPD now is to take this second objective of the Liberian people and we're capturing that in Pillar 1 and in Pillar 2. Next one. Now, so what is the PAPD as we define it at this point? It's a framework for building a nation around core principles that say, 1, we are Africans. 2, proud of our race. 3, we are a vibrant culture. 4, we want to take ownership of the national development process. Mr. President, development starts from the mind of the people, not from anywhere else. The PAPD is a framework that begins to address that. When you look at our analysis, we look at the significance of the history. We conclude in the final part that your election, we talk about it in the context of 73 years since democratic transfer, peaceful transfer of power, but it is the first generational change since universal suffrage was introduced in 1951. And the advantage you have, Mr. President, is your generation is no longer constrained by our past. Our past said, we, the citizens of Liberia, were originally citizens somewhere else. We came seeking liberty, to Christianize Africa. We still sing it. In our national songs, we sing about a race benighted and how long live Liberia and how we will Christianize a benighted people. Your generation is not constrained by that vision. We're proposing in the PAPD that the vision going forward is that we are Africans. We are proud of our race. We are proud of our heritage. We need to change our mindset and the way we think of ourselves. The second thing about the PAPD we're designing is that a framework for lifting an additional 25% of the population out of poverty through accelerated economic growth. Next one. This is the PAPD as it stands. Now, the introduction I just gave you captures the entire first part of the document at the very top. Okay. This introduction, context, and history. After that, we do an assessment. Most of this has already been done. So when the minister is making a commitment that we can have this done by the end of June, it's pretty much on the mark. We've done the assessment of social and human progress, poverty and vulnerability, and I will give you a few of that in a few minutes. We've done an analysis of disparity across the Liberia region, so we have a sense of what we're talking about. On the other side of the analysis, yes, we are poor, but on the other side of the analysis, we're saying, where is the current and potential key drivers of economic growth? Where are the new opportunities? Okay, and how can we overlay them in the context of what is called development corridors? Then we go down to what the key goal of the National Development Plan is. The first one we are proposing is to build a peaceful, stable, and inclusive nation. And the second one is to lift an additional 1 million Liberians out of absolute poverty over the next 6 years. Now, in the middle of that, that would be very familiar to you, Mr. President, because we captured that from your manifesto, from your inaugural address, and from your first address to the Liberian National Legislature. We also had the benefit of the roadmap that was developed by the Ministry of Finance and Development Planning to structure this in a way to show how the pillars will correspond. Starting next week, we're organizing a series of meetings. We're inviting our development partners into the process, their technical experts, and we begin to populate this with the specific policies, programs, and projects that correspond to all of this. After we've done with that whole middle section that we're looking at, then we look at the financing, we're looking at the delivery of results, and of course, the M&E. Next one. But let's touch a little bit on poverty, the next one. When you analyze poverty, you see that 84% of the people in Maryland County are in absolute poverty. This is according to ListGIS. Next one. 82% of the people in River G are in absolute poverty. Next one. 74.4% of the people in Grand Cru are in absolute poverty. This is income poverty. In the PAPD, we're recommending that those areas should be priority areas. Next one. We spread this across Liberia according to regions. This is what we call the statistical regions of Liberia. You will see that in the Southeast, 78.9% of the people are in poverty. In Southeast A, 51.1%. And I know sometimes the people in Sinai will say, but how can we be better off than the people in River G? Okay, but that's what the statistics show, okay? But also interestingly, we see that in what is supposed to be our food basket, Nimba, Bong, and Lofa counties, 71% of the people in that area are in poverty. And then it shows how it is distributed according to different rates of poverty across the country. Next one. Now, we also took a look at poverty from another perspective. This is the perspective of what we call deprivation, how deprived people are of development. Okay? The higher the number, the more deprived you are of education opportunities, of access to health, of opportunities to make a decent living and earn a decent income. Next one. If from the bar all the way down are the counties of Liberia, The number for Liberia is 0.374, okay? And we try to find out which counties fall below that level, meaning that they're more deprived than the average for Liberia. The next one. We found that only Montserrado, Rangire, and Magibi County are above that number. Every other county can be classified as a deprived county of education, access to health, and income earning opportunity. Next one. Now, that's the negative side. Going forward, where are the opportunities to begin to change that? So we did an analysis of the economy as it currently stands. This is what we call the growth drivers. If you look at the economy, services consistently have been almost 0.5% of the economy, of the GDP. If you look at the bottom, 26% is agriculture and fisheries. The rest, the contribution is not significant. The next one. So we took those particular ones, agriculture, industry, services, and say, if we did nothing, this is what the economists call the do-nothing economic scenario. We made no major policy changes. We left things exactly as they are. We made no major interventions in the economy. What would happen to agriculture, industry, and services? Now, the orange color line is industry. It shows that in 2014 to 2016, industry went down, okay? But then, going forward, 2017, 18, and 19, on that orange line, industry began to accelerate. But we look at agriculture and services, and they are the blue line and the gray line, they're almost together. If we did absolutely nothing, and the central bank governor is here, so these are his numbers, we got them from him. If we did absolutely nothing in the economy, and the world market prices did not go down, there's no major interruption in the world market prices over the next couple of years, there will be growth. In all honesty, there will still be growth in the economy because of the actions of private actors. Now, but we also look at what is called the poverty head count. What will happen to the proportion of Liberians who are still living in poverty? That is the yellow line running across the top. That number said that in 2014, we have 54% of Liberians living in poverty. This is income poverty. This is not deprivation. It rose to about 56% in 2015. It went to about 58% in 2016. And after that, it starts to come down. Now, if we did absolutely nothing, poverty will reduce in Liberia. But if you look at the proportion, it's reducing by only about 2%, 2%, 2%, 2% every year. That means it would take 10 to 15% to reach the significant number of people that we need to reach under this program. Next one. What we're proposing under the Propo agenda for poverty and development is that over the next 6 years, we will intervene. We will intervene significantly in setting growth development corridors. We will intervene significantly in terms of scaling up of what is called social protection. Social protection essentially is social inclusion through work, a social cash transfer for elderly who are heads of household, is a work program for the youth, is training and vocational education, micro-enterprise development. A lot of these initiatives intervene significantly and see if we can drive down. It's also food, an expansion in maybe school feeding, and we're going to capture the specific projects in the next couple of weeks. If we intervene, over the next 6 years, we can bring the poverty rate down by where we want to go. We can bring another 1 million Liberians above the poverty line. We can reduce poverty to 29.2%. Next one. Now, let's look at the drivers again. We said agriculture and fishery at 25%. So we're talking about food, rice and cassava, and acceleration in the production of those. Services, 46%. Then the infrastructure will be served as the enablers. And then the economic activities we're looking at are increased farmers and household income, increase the tax base and revenue, and reduce poverty by 24% over the next 6 years. The next one. Okay, so what we're proposing under the PAPD is what we call a paradigm shift. Basically, we will do things differently. The way we did it under the agenda for transformation, we'll do it entirely differently, starting now, as soon as this is launched. And it will take about 2 years to adapt from the way we do business to the new way we're going to be able to do business. The next one. Okay, we're proposing a shift from sectoral to multi-sectoral. What does that mean in reality? It means that when you build a highway, rather than going in there and just building a highway, we look at education. What kind of investment we need to make in education? We look at health. What kind of improvement we need to make in health? We look at business opportunity. Is there an opportunity there to establish a special economic zone and begin to stimulate the development in that particular? So you begin to what we call crowd investment into certain development corridors with the intention of accelerating the growth and development of those areas of the country. We're recommending baselining. I showed you the different regions of Liberia. That's baselining. This is where we are now in terms of poverty and vulnerability. We start from there as the baseline and we begin to measure it going forward. We recommend the establishment of a social protection flow. What is a social protection flow? It is the minimum amount of income security, access to health, access to education that each Liberian will be entitled to. And the government itself is a duty bearer to draw in its international partner, to draw in private sector investment, to ensure that every Liberian has an opportunity to get on that flow. Now, the fifth one is implementation of intervention to diversify the economy in anticipation of rising demand for goods and services in the ECOWAS sub-region. Remember, we're coming back to this thing where we are Africans. Now, in the Mana River Union, the GDP is $68 billion. 2 years ago, 2015 GDP, $68 billion. But interestingly, in the Mana River Union, 46 million people live in urban centers. That provides a market for some new opportunities and interesting new opportunities. Now, re-emphasizing the scaling up of agriculture and development of appropriate value chains. 6, establishment of special economic zones in development corridors to attract domestic and foreign investment through generous tax and financing incentive to spur economic growth. Shift efforts downstream to focus more attention on meeting the basic needs of Liberians and removing the constraints to their personal growth and development, recognizing that widespread poverty in itself is a major inhibitor of our national potential. 1, 2, and 3 are short-term, 4, 5, 6, and 7 are medium to long-term initiatives. Now, we talk about development corridors. Let's show you what we're talking about. If you look into the blue circles right now, those are the areas where 75% of Liberians live. Those are natural economic corridors, and more things can happen there. Next one. Now, if you look at that one, that opens the possibility for another development corridor where we can begin to crowd our investment in that area. If you look at that particular one, it extends into Zerikore and back to Ganta. Okay? We're not territory from Guinea, but it provides a basis for cross-border trade between investments on that new road to Zozo and the neighboring communities across. It broadens the market. So we're not just talking about Zozo, we're talking about broadening the market. Now, we have not gone into this, the economists will look at it. But is there an opportunity to put a special economic zone in Zozo that is focused on food processing, food storage, for the Liberian market and for export into the ECOWAS region? For the first time in our framework, when we go down and you look at it, we're considering foreign policy with the intention of attracting more and better relationship with the neighboring countries. Let's go to the next one. The next one we look at is the road that is currently under construction between Harbour and Fishtown. It provides an opportunity to do business along that corridor. People tell me now, I haven't been there, but if you drive up that road, it's a beautiful road so far, and there's electricity lines running straight down, but there's nothing else there. Can we crowd some investment in there and create some special economic zone to begin to accelerate development in that region of Liberia? The next one. This one is a long existing one. It's the LAMCO rails. One of the things we've done, we've gone through all the concession agreements that have been developed so far, and to investigate the possibility of co-locating things on the infrastructure that currently exists. So that is a potential corridor that can be developed in the future. Next one. This is the one under consideration. That is the road from Buchanan to Fishtown. So you begin to see now the possibility of developing different corridors in Liberia. And the concept we're pushing under the PAPD is that we'll crowd our investment into those corridors to see if we can stimulate the growth and development and reduce poverty. Next one. Now, this is an interesting one. This is the area of interest for oil palm. Under this arrangement, Liberia is supposed to establish 100 hectares of outgrower farms. We see this as a major growth opportunity for that region of the country. Our numbers say if we establish 84,000 hectares over the next few years, it will contribute $150 million a year in additional exports for Liberia through those outgrowers. And those outgrowers are Liberians. They have the land is not productive. It's transforming that land into a productive asset and transforming it into wealth. It also says that 214,000 persons will benefit from regular income from the investment in those 84,000 hectares. Next one. So essentially that's the economic, how we look at the first two pillars. Now, the rest of them is more focused on creating the enabling environment. What we're going to try to populate over the next couple of weeks is the governance and transparency. The areas we're looking at: decentralization, reconciliation, political and economic governance and transparency. We don't have time to go through all of them, but this gives you an idea of the topics that we're going to try to cover and capture in the PAPD going forward. But I'd like to mention especially the one on deconcentration county level administration. Under the current arrangement, county administration, there are a service center being established. Okay? The way we're structuring it under the PAPD, local administration into public service delivery in the areas that they administer. Right now, like I told you, they are agents of people in Monrovia. How do we make them effectively involved in the development process in their areas? So we're talking going beyond deconcentration and begin to devolve some political and fiscal power in the context of the PAPD. Next one. This is what we're looking at under sustaining the peace. The focus there is on ending peace and fragility, reconciliation, justice, and human rights. Please go back one. Now, it's interesting because you notice that under governance and transparency, reconciliation is there. Okay? But the approach we're using is to treat reconciliation from the standpoint of political exclusion, marginalization, and land security. Go forward. Okay? Here, we're looking at reconciliation for tackling social inequalities, improving government accountability, strengthening civil society, and development ownership of the development process from the local level. Next one. So, what are we looking at? We've done some preliminary calculation of the numbers. How are we going to fund this? What is this going to cost? We're looking at $6 billion. The Liberia Revenue Authority will be presenting their domestic resource mobilization strategy. What it suggests is that we make some policy changes and adjustment over the next 5 years. We will be able to potentially raise between $3.2 to $3.5 billion from domestic resources. If we do that, then the amount of funding we need from grants, loans from our development partners will be about $2.5 billion. After June, we will have the framework in place. In the months of July, August, we will drill down into the resource mobilization strategy for specific intervention and have a clear idea how that money is going to be mobilized. Thank you.
They represent our people's needs and wants. We just told her how the government must work for the people. That's just a good thing. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, ministers, our international partners, our elders, since I have the gavel, we will stop this far, and then I will invite you for lunch. We'll come back and we'll have one item on the agenda, and tomorrow we'll continue on the LRA item. So join me for lunch, and I'll ask for a motion to eat. So move.
NASCO been involved in a lot of development activities across Liberia. Looking at the presentation today, does your activity actually fit into the PAPD?
Well, definitely. We're going to assist. The president has a new agenda, and we're going to be right there with him to help him get his agenda achieved.
And so what are some of the plans you have as an institution that will fit in within the PAPD?
Well, what's going to happen, the president, we see that his major agenda is, especially his pet peeve, is going to be the housing for the poor, and we're going to support that 100%.
Well, you've been in housing business, so
yes.
Meaning that you're going to...
It's a different kind, but the kind that the president wants, we're going to support it.
So you're going to support the president's agenda fully?
We will help with it. He also has other helpers, but we will definitely stand by to support the president's agenda.
Beyond that, what are some of the things you think you can get him to do?
That we can get him to do?
Yeah.
No, it's the other way around. The president decides his agenda, and then we go by it. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.